The line at the government security checkpoint was long, impatient, and restless. Rain streaked down the tall glass windows, casting a cold gray light over the crowded atrium. People shifted on their feet, eyes fixed on their phones, waiting to be waved through. And then, the officers noticed her. An older woman, alone. Hair streaked silver, pulled back into a simple bun. A plain coat, a small rolling suitcase, and a worn duffel bag at her side. Nothing remarkable at first glance. Just another traveler. But when Officer Rustin called her forward, something shifted. Her steps were measured, her back impossibly straight for her 68 years. Her hands were steady as she handed over her ID. He frowned. "This is expired." Her voice was soft but firm. "The letter says it's still valid." She slid a document with an official seal across the table. He barely glanced at it. "Purpose of your visit?" he pressed. "It's personal," she said simply. The line of people behind her grew restless. Young, loud travelers were waved through with barely a glance, but Rustin kept his focus locked on her. He called over his colleague. "Secondary screening. Over there." She complied without protest, moving to the inspection table. Her duffel was set down. "Open it," Rustin said. "I'd prefer a private screening," she requested. "No," he snapped. "Here's fine." The fluorescent lights above were harsh. A small crowd began to gather, sensing a moment worth watching. She unzipped the bag partway, but Rustin stopped her. "We'll do it." He slipped on latex gloves with a snap, dragging the zipper open. One by one, they pulled out her belongings and laid them on the cold metal table. A framed photograph, unwrapped without care. A worn book of poetry. A bottle of pills. A small ornate key. "What's this for?" Rustin asked with mock curiosity. "It opened something that should have stayed closed," she replied quietly. Laughter rippled through the watching crowd. Then a small box emerged. Inside was a metal pin, military in design, but without a unit name. "A memento?" Rustin asked. "Of people who are gone now," she said. Her voice dipped low, the words heavier than they sounded. The crowd grew, phones lifted, filming the humiliation. Finally, Rustin's hand hovered over the last, unopened compartment. "Anything you want to tell us before I open this?" She looked at him steadily. "Only that I value my privacy." The zipper rasped open. He reached inside and pulled out a neatly folded deep blue military uniform jacket. At first he smirked, holding it up like a costume for show. But then his eyes narrowed. There were insignias he didn't recognize, metals unfamiliar even to a trained officer. Lorette, his colleague, stepped closer. "These aren't standard issue," he muttered. From the crowd, someone whispered, "Those are real." Rustin's arrogance faltered. He checked the name patch. Thorn. He compared the number to her ID. It matched. Before he could speak, a tall man in a decorated military uniform entered the checkpoint. He moved with quiet authority, his eyes falling on the jacket in Rustin's hands. The crowd parted instinctively as he approached. "Is that Captain Thorne's uniform you're holding, officer?" His voice was sharp, commanding. Rustin froze. "Sir, we were just conducting protocol." "Protocol includes dignity," the man interrupted. "Return it. Now." The older woman straightened. Her eyes softened. "General Crane," she said, her tone respectful but warm. "It's been many years," he replied, offering a perfect military salute. She returned it with precision. The crowd fell silent. Phones kept rolling, but now the tone had changed. This was no longer a spectacle of ridicule. This was history unfolding. General Crane turned to the watching officers. "Captain Isolde Thorne was one of the finest officers I ever commanded. Her file was classified for decades. Today, she's here to receive the Distinguished Service Cross from the President himself." Gasps rippled through the onlookers. The medal's name alone carried weight, second only to the Medal of Honor. Rustin's face drained of color. He handed back the uniform with trembling hands. "Ma'am?" "I apologize." She met his gaze. "Respect is not earned by insignia. It's earned by recognizing humanity in others." General Crane gathered her belongings carefully. "Captain, let's get you to the ceremony. The others are waiting." As they left the checkpoint, the crowd stepped aside, many lowering their phones out of respect. Some saluted quietly. Others just watched, realizing they'd misjudged a woman who had walked past them minutes earlier. In the grand hall above, sunlight streamed through tall windows. The surviving members of Special Operations Group Delta sat together for the first time in decades. Men and women who had operated in shadows the world never knew. When her name was called, Captain Thorne walked to the podium. She wore her uniform once again. The president himself pinned the medal to her chest, his voice steady as he spoke of a mission that had saved 37 hostages and altered the course of the Cold War. She saluted, not for herself, but for those who never made it home. After the ceremony, a young security officer approached. It was the same one who had stayed silent during her checkpoint ordeal. "Ma'am," she said, I wanted to thank you for your service. And I wanted to say, I should have spoken up earlier." Thorne studied her for a moment. "The greatest service often happens where no one is watching. Remember that." The young officer nodded, her eyes shining. Later, as Isolde left the building with General Crane, the rain had stopped. The streets were clean, the air fresh. And somewhere behind them, the checkpoint continued processing travelers. Some important, some ordinary, all deserving of dignity. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary people in the room are the ones no one notices.